Good morning. What do we got here? 9:30, 9:45 in the morning. I'm going to do a couple of different things here real quick. We're going to talk about, I just posted up the picture of that piece right there that we're going to do in lead. And I always try to show these things from the very beginning. And I've got this thing more or less drawn. And what most people would look at it and say less rather than more. But the hard part's already over with. And I'll show you why it's in this state right here. And then people that there are a lot of hobbyists, or people that like to do this as a hobby, or some people are maybe beyond a hobbyist and just do it all the time. It's more than a hobby to them. They sell a few of these and give a few of them away and use them as gifts and that kind of stuff. Anyway, we need to do this piece. The client sent me this picture, and that's a window in maybe it's his house. I don't really know where it is. I'm assuming it's his place. And that would be bigger than 16 by 16 for sure. And I can see from the picture that that's lead. And from that era, you know, early 1900s, late 1800s, I'm sure it's lead. And so the design itself lends itself to being done in lead. So, and I like to do lead when I can. So we're going to do this in lead. So the next thing, the client wants it 16 by 16. So we've squared off here on this paper a 16 by 16 square. And then we want to draw that thing, morph it down, make it fit 16 by 16. So I quartered this 16 by 16 into 4 quarters, right? And then now I have to figure out, well, I've got to get this artwork inside of a 16 by 16 border. And in fact, it's less than that because we have to get this border here in and that border in before we get into the artwork. And bear in mind that that border going all the way around that thing really shrinks this area that we're going to work in. So that's the first thing I do. I get this drawn out here, realizing that I have to, you know, we don't want to jam this thing in there, but I want to get this in and make it look right. So that's where I decide the width of these border pieces out here. Obviously, the wider they are on my 16 by 16, the less room I have to do this work. So I still want it to appear to be a border, not too narrow. So I elected to go a 25 millimeter by 15 millimeter. And how did I come up with that? Well, this piece is going to have, because we're using lead, it's going to have a zinc border. So, and I always use this nice, strong half-inch, we talk about this all the time, this half-inch zinc U-channel. This stuff is strong. Now, this is going to be a leaded window, so we will cement this window, as I do all leaded windows. And the cement does a couple of different things, but we'll talk about the cement when we get that far. Anyway, this is what we're going to use. So I set that on the 16 by 16 size right there. And I thought, you know, that's going to narrow me up. So why don't we, I've got a little bit of leeway. This window's going to be a little bit bigger than 16 by 16. It's going to be probably 16 and a half or so. By 16 and a half. So I elected to put that channel where the glass is at that spot right there on the original 16 by 16. Then I measured from the inside of that channel. Let's just do that. Here it is. I bought another one of these just because I constantly lose this one. Anyway, I set that inside there and I think, all right, there's my 25 millimeter border. Why do I use millimeters instead of fractions? Well, that turns out to be a little bit less than an inch. And fractions, you know, they work. The system that we use, the base 10 system, I don't know what we call it. Anyway, I know millimeters is the one I like. Anyway, you're everywhere in the world but here. And so that's just so much more exact to me than this is actually, oh man, halfway between 15/16 and 1 inch. So who wants to deal with that? So I just go 25 millimeters. So there's my 25 millimeter line. Now I have that, and I see what that looks like, the face of this, and it's a little bit wider than this, which is what I'm looking for. So I just want enough of a width here to show a little wider in this border than this border, which is here, it's even more wide. But I've got to use a little bit of artistic license because I don't want to jam myself out of this center here and get into a situation where all of this gets so narrow that it looks cobbed up. So the 25 worked for me. And then I look now, a 15 millimeter looks just about right, because the 15, if you look at the face of this thing or what you'd see when the window's finished, that 15 is smaller than this distance here, obviously. And looks, what is the face of that? 20. Okay, there you go. So I've got a 20 millimeter facing and a 15 millimeter. Now this won't be 15, and the reason it won't, because here's the 3/16 lead right here. So I laid that down and I looked at that and I thought, well, you know what, that's going to be real good. Now I'm going to have a face of about 11 to 12 millimeter face, or what you would see from the looking at the window, against this, which is going to be about a 14 or so face, something like that. So that's going to be just right. And that 3/16 lead, now, it might look wide to you folks right here, but that is the devil to work with, particularly when you start getting into all this kind of stuff here, making all these miters and stuff here. This is not bad, but, you know, you'll definitely earn your money on this. All right, so what I want to do now, if I can do this one-handed, well, come on. Okay, we're just going to lean this into here. I want that to, you know what I'll do? Why don't we do this? Now it's not going to move on me. I wanted to show you what I talked about. Some people don't know what I'm talking about when I say, well, you got to really have some tight glass cutting. Now, watch the graduations on the measuring device there, the little meter stick. See that? There's only 2 millimeters under this thing. So now, look down there at 2 millimeters. If you're going to use 3/16 lead, let me get where you can see this. If you're going to use 3/16 lead, you're going to get your cutting skills jacked up big time, because when you start making miters into places like this, if you're not a good cutter, you don't have any room to hide anything. And with copper foil, you know, you just wrap the copper around there, and if there's a hole there, you just fill it with solder. Now that doesn't look good, but you know, your skills at some point have to catch up. You know, you have to get better. Well, with this kind of stuff, with a 3/16 lead, and bear in mind they make 1/8 lead, which is just nuts to work with. I don't even work with that stuff. It's crazy. All right, but anyway, this is bad enough with the 2 millimeters. But anyway, your glass cutting skill is going to have to really be there, because you're going to have your glass working right up in here, and your lead cutting skills are going to have to be up to par, because you're going to have to make these miters. If you're not a good cutter or good with the lead, or you know, somewhat proficient at this, then you've got some holes here and stuff like that, which end up getting filled with solder or cement, and it just does not look good, and you can't, you know, push that kind of stuff off on whoever is going to get it. I mean, I guess if you're new into this and you're just fooling around with it, I remember keeping a lot of my old stuff because it just wasn't any good, particularly with the lead. And then there's another consideration for the 3/16 in that it's a little more difficult to solder because it's smaller. So you really have to have your game together on the soldering on this stuff, and we'll show you how to do all that. So the soldering on this stuff is going to be a good tutorial for people that are having trouble soldering with lead, because it's totally different than soldering with copper foil, because the lead melts at a lower temperature than the solder you're using. So it's easy enough to get for the lead just to go away on you while you're trying to get a solder bead down. So we'll talk about all that stuff as we fabricate this thing. But let's talk about now how we're going to do this drawing. Okay, so I'm looking back over here, kind of eyeballing how everything is laid out. And of course, there's the center of the drawing, or the center of the window rather. And here's the center of the window. So my quarter dividing the drawing up is working out. Now, once I got the borders drawn in, and there's the center, then look, there's this section here is divided into 3 parts. Well, it so happened that this was about 6 3/16 inches across here. Now there I'm using inches this time instead of millimeters because I can easily divide 3 into 6 3/16, and I get 2 1/16. So I drew a line here, 2 1/16, another 2 1/16, and that just happened to come out 2 1/16. So that worked out great. Okay, so now I've got the border right and this right. And then I come up here let me go back down here. Now, if you look, here's these little, looks like a cup, you know. All right. So I just drew half of that. And what I'll do when I get ready to complete this drawing, I'll trace that one right there. Put that, here's a light box right here. Put the light box underneath this thing and trace it. And then all I have to do is shove that trace drawing, this half, up under here, and I'll have the other half. Now I have an entire cup already ready to go. So I just trace that, and then I just move under, with a light box, move that under here, and under here. Now you've got all 4 of these exactly the same, right? Okay, now we need to get this drawn up. Come on. Oh, there you go. We need to get this drawn up here. So we saw that we have this long, slender section of the piece right here. So I think, well, you know, I like the width of this 15. Looks pretty good. And in fact, it looked to me like the original artist that made this picture or design over 100 years ago used about the same width. So let's go that direction. So that gave me the 15 here. So I just took the 15 and went straight to the top. Next, what's next? Well, it appears there's a round circle just below the center of this section right here. And then here's another circle that's up into this border up on top here. So I thought, okay, let's put those in. We're looking for references here to get this thing drawn. So I put the circle in. There's this quarter here divided in half. So I put the circle here, and then I went up there, put that circle. So I got that circle in. I said, okay, now what? Okay, now let's go back. I thought, well, I need to start. I don't care about this section, see. I only need to draw half this thing. So I looked right here, and this is a flower here. There's 3 petals to this flower. I originally thought that was a petal to the flower, but it's part of the leaf. It's just the lighting has thrown that off and made that look like part of the flower. Maybe it's a little softer green, maybe to kind of be, you know, a bud jacket or whatever on this. Kind of looks like a tulip. So anyway, I thought, well, let's put this piece in, and then put this piece in, and then that'll give us a reference to take off and do the rest of this. So I went up here and just put that little section right there in, and then I took that upper piece and put that in, and then I came back over here and I thought, well, now we're getting somewhere. So let's put this one in, which would give us this side of the centerpiece. So let's put this one in. So we put that one in, and that gave us, you know, the side to the centerpiece. And then they have this other piece right here. And this is going to be green, part of the leaf, maybe a little bit lighter green here than the leaves themselves. Now, they've done the leaves on this thing the same as the background. We'll think about that. I have enough I've got some really good glass that I can use from the same sheet, lighter in the background and then darker here. but I'll probably head off to a different green here rather than go exactly as we have here. I'll be close. All right, so we want to draw this one in, and then we try to start working these leaves in. Okay, so we drew this one in, and then here we work in our leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, we're pretty close to what this looks like, and you can see all the eraser lines on here where I'm drawing these leaves to try to get them to fit this slot here and to look right. Okay, so I like that. That fits the interior of this piece. It doesn't look too small. It doesn't look too large. We've drawn everything more or less, scaled it back to what this original, if I had to guess, I would think that's at least 28 or so wide. I don't think it's 32, but I think it's about 28 wide. So we've reduced that thing down, but kept the drawing. Okay, now if we've got the leaves in here, we come down now, and let's get the foot of this thing. So there's the foot. So we have the foot of that thing. And so now all we have to do now is trace this and take that trace drawing, turn it upside down, because you're on tracing paper, right? You can see through it. Turn that trace drawing upside down, back to the light box, and all I have to do is trace on this original, that trace drawing that's complement of this. That gives me this whole upper section, and like I said earlier, we'll trace this half, put it under this piece of paper, this master, draw it, and it'll be the exact opposite of this, and then we just move 1, 2, 3. We'll have all 4 of those. So at that point, now I need to do the same thing here. I'll trace this, and there'll be a little, I call a registration mark. On my trace drawing under here, I'll put a cross right here, and that lines me up on this side, and then I'll put a little cross right there, and that'll line me up. So all I have to do is come right back here and put that, I do it with a yardstick to get it in the right place, but there's the cross. Come right here, I could measure from there over to here. Anyway, I'll get that foot exactly the same. What you're really looking for is this curve here. That has to be the same. So this is real easy just to do that. So I could complete this drawing from where we are right now, probably in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And that's the end of it. That's how I get all kinds of questions about how do I draw this stuff up. And if you can't, or well, why do I want to say this? If you can't do this, you can. That's the deal. You can do it. But you need to be able to do this, because if you don't, and you're a hobbyist working on stained glass, then you're always going to be confined to whatever size pattern that you've found to work with. And so if you can draw your own, and look at, when you first, I know that's not really intimidating, but I've been looking at these things for 50 years. But if you're relatively new to this and think, well, how am I going to get that drawn? How am I going to get this side to look like that side? How am I going to get these little cups the same all the way across here? It's just real simple, and I've just explained to you how to do it. And when I get done with this 15 minutes from now, this whole drawing will be done. Now what I'll do then is I'll shelve this thing for a few days, because then we're going to go to step number 2 here. Now I just opened the kiln up. I haven't pulled any of these out. I got some I got some dragonflies to do. And what did I do with my little poker? Here it is. So you're going to see this thing the same time I do. So these have been in the kiln overnight, and they were heated to 1385 degrees, which cures this color line. I'm getting up under here. I don't want to tear, not dummy. I don't want to tear up. Let's just slide that out of there. I don't want to tear up this kiln paper here, because I can use it several times. I'm trying to get a hold of this. Now normally, you'd be doing this with 2 hands. There you go. There it is. All right. That one's stuck together just a little bit, but it won't hurt anything. Because I'm lucky I didn't break something right then, acting stupid. But anyway, we'll just hit that with a grinder and clean that up. I had that kiln pretty tight, and those two evidently touched each other. And boy, it's a good thing I didn't go to a temperature much higher than 1385, because it would have melted those two together. But no big deal. That was close. Close to being a mistake. And I would not be happy, because I put a lot of time into getting this. Ooh, man. Check out the eyeballs on that thing. Okay. Let's go right here. There we go. Can we see this thing? Oh, man. Boy, you know, I really love looking at these the first time I see them. Look at that. All right, now, what I'll do now is figure out the color of glass that's going to go around that thing. Wow, that thing is like iridescent. You know, when you're doing these, I don't know, they about halfway disappoint me most of the time when I'm doing them. And then when they get fired, they just look so good. Boy, is that pretty. Wow. Oh, man. Let's look at another one if we can get one out of here. I hope I can do this without tearing up this kiln paper. I do not want to tear up that kiln paper. There we go. Now here's a different style. Oh man. Now this one's a little bit different style. And I wanted this black body where I could put, oh gosh, that's so pretty. Look how the paint has melted in to the dragonfly. And look at the eyeballs. Okay. Now this one's a little more delicate than the other one. Man, and see, you couldn't make 2 of these the same if you tried. There's just not any way, because with all the little tiny paint dots and all that kind of stuff. Gosh, I like that one. All right, and then these 3 that are in here have not been, don't have the colors on them yet. There's one back there, pretty ornate, and that one, and they don't have the color on them yet. So I've got to get them out. That'll take all day long to get the color on them. Then I got to go fire them again. So while those are firing, I'll come back and start working on the colored glass on these. And this thing's going to have to go maybe 5, 6, 7 days, something like that, before I start that. So I'm mentioning that simply because there's a lot of people that are interested in the lead work and how to do the lead work and how to cut it, how to miter it. And then I'll do some glass cutting lessons on this thing, because it's going to require the glass to be cut so close. And we're going to use, which I haven't, it's probably in one of my videos. I've got so many videos. We're going to do the 1 piece at a time, which I do all of the stuff I do. 1 piece at a time method, and I'll show you how you, on a leaded window, how that is so important. Because if you cut all of this glass first, which is the normal way everybody does it, if you cut all that glass first and then try to lead that thing up, you're gonna need a Valium drip, because that'll drive you nuts trying to get that glass. Because lead work is a whole different animal than copper foil, because you're working those pieces to try to get them into the lid, and you know, you're going to have all kinds of trouble fitting pre-cut glass into this. Now, as I say that, they've been doing this stuff for hundreds of years. Everybody cuts all the glass first, and I used to do that too. But the 1 piece at a time method makes it easy for me, because I can work each piece at a time, make it fit the cartoon, and go to the next one. It's just the way I do it. I don't know. I'm not advocating everybody do that. Just whatever works for you. Okay, anyway, I guess that's about it. That's all I have. We're going to dig these out. Gee whiz, I'm so happy with the way these came out. Look at that thing. Oh boy, that is so much fun to do these. And you know, you never know what you're going to get when they come out, because you know, I love the iridescence of that blue. Wow. Okay, guys, that's all I have right now. If you have questions, be sure and ask me. I'm always around. You know, I'm busy, but I'm not too busy to help. You can always say, no, I always say this to my clients and to everybody else that worries about, oh, I can't talk to him because he's too busy. No one needs an emergency stained glass window. So we take whatever time it takes to get the stuff done right. And you guys that follow my work and follow me and need answers to your questions, that's important. I know it's important to you, and it's important to me. Okay, thank you. Bye now.